Hello and welcome to my live interview today for the Victorious Souls podcast. I have a gentleman all the way from Australia today. I'm very excited to share him with you and his story with you. He is the founder of a global community called Saving Brothers. He's the founder of the global community Saving Brothers. See, Philip, he's been through an awful lot. And when he went through all that, he felt very alone. And he didn't like that feeling. Who does like that feeling, right? And so after he went through this, he could not bear the thought of other men going through things like he's been through alone. And so that's how he founded his global community of Saving Brothers. And you'll get to hear his story as I bring him in here to meet you. And for those of you who don't know me, I am Danielle Bernack from DanielleBernack.com. Love yourself from Survive to Thrive, that lady on the internet who loves you. And so we welcome Philip Robison here all the way from Australia. Thank you, Philip, for being with us today and sharing your story.
Danny, I've got to say, sister, firstly, I'm stoked. Is that a word that I can use? But I'm stoked to be with you.
Yes, of course you can say that.
Cool.
I was telling the people how you have been through so much and you felt like you were alone and you just could not bear the thought of other men dealing with things like that alone. And so you started this whole global community. And I said it was Founding Brothers, so I tripped over myself, but I correct that. And I know I don't edit any of these things out. And I share this with you because I'm sharing it with my audience again, for those who maybe you're new to me. I don't edit these things out. I do everything live on purpose because I want you to know we're real, we're genuine, we make mistakes just like you. And we want you to feel comfortable. We want you to feel safe. We want you to know, hey, we're real. See, I just tripped over myself. So I'm just really excited to share Philip with you today. It's Monday where I am and it's Tuesday where he is. I just think that is the coolest thing.
Yeah, in Australia, we like to be ahead of the curveball.
I like that. Well, you went through a lot, like I mentioned that, but what was life like before all of that, Philip? What was it like to grow up, Philip? What was your life before all this crap happened? Tell us about Philip.
Sure. I reckon I was just a regular kind of teenager, a young fella that I played a lot of sports. And in Australia, we have a game called cricket, which is not so big in the US, of course. Played a lot of Australian sports like soccer, football, our hybrid game called Aussie Rules. So I was always into fitness and I always loved being competitive. Danny, I just loved team sports, but I also like to win. And I like to win in life. I'd have to say, look, I would say I had a regular childhood. I was a happy kid, had opportunities, a little bit of travel. My parents weren't wealthy. I would say we were a typical middle class kind of family. I did have a really good education. I went to a grammar school. So it was a boys only school where your parents pay a lot of money. And sometimes you wonder what it was for. But on reflection, I think it was wonderful and made some lifelong friends. And it gives you some networking opportunities and you learn a lot about yourself. But then I think as a teenager, I probably went through what a lot of boys go through, Danny, which was complete confusion, all this testosterone running through my body and being confused. And then all of a sudden I'm doing dancing classes with girls. And it's like, holy cow, you look all right. And there's something about looking at you that's making me feel a little different. And I want to learn a bit more about this. So I ended up like a typical guy. Back then, I had plenty of hair and I'd be trying to spike up my hair and look cool and have my school shirt hanging out and, just carry my bag in a certain way in case the girls looked and I'd see who were the cool cats. And, I wanted to be one of the guys in the it group and I'd go to all the parties and I'd meet nice girls and I did all what I would say was normal stuff. Mm-hmm. And drank a little too much at times. Just did a few things that were a little bit on the edge. I think and I think a lot of boys like to be a little bit edgy with their behavior. It's kind of part of the passage, the journey. And so I would say, though, the big thing for me, I did well in what you would call high school. I think you would call it high school before you go off to college. And then I got a good score at school. And then I was going to go to university or what you'd call college. But I was really lost. I was pretty confused. and had no idea really what I wanted to do. I started studying economics and I hated it. It just wasn't my thing. But one of my dad's well-meaning friends said, you know, your son did really well in school. He should go and study economics. And Dad's thinking, well, I'll try and do the right thing by my son. Yeah, let's get him to do that. And it was just not my thing. And I think a lesson if I was to tell my younger self is follow things that you are interested in, that you're good at, and that you have a passion for. So that said, I dropped in and out of college like putting T-shirts on, you know, like I was in one course and then I was out and then I was in, I was out, and I just really didn't find my thing. And then in about the 1987, you remember that movie, Danny, Wall Street, with Michael Douglas, and he's Gordon Gekko, and he talks about greed is good. And Michael Douglas played this great part, and Charlie Sheen was in the movie as well. And it was all about the stock market and how you can take over companies and make millions of dollars. And there I was working in Melbourne, Australia, on the trading floor of the Melbourne Stock Exchange. And then this little thing comes along on the 20th of October, Danny, 1987, called the crash. And that was when we had the big financial crash. And there I was standing on the floor. Think of it like the New York Stock Exchange, where you see them all yelling and screaming and it's organized chaos. And that's what our pit was like as well. And then all of a sudden, the trades went down to a seventh, as in the trade volume, Danny, of what they were. And therefore, my job effectively became redundant because if there's not much trade, there wasn't work for me on the trading floor. Fast forward a little bit, I ended up getting into professional sales, and it took me a while to hit my stride. But actually, at the time, I was previously married. I was married for 22 and a half years. And my father-in-law at the time, which really lovely man, put me onto Tony Robbins. And I started doing personal power. And I thought, this is so cool. So I did his personal power 30-day journey to transformation. And then Tony came to Australia, I think it was 1995. And I did the firewalk. I did all of his, you know, I'm standing there going over the hot coals. I think there were 1,000 degrees Celsius at 1 a.m. Up in Sydney. And I'm really passionate. And all of a sudden I'm excelling in sales. And for me, what was interesting about that journey is I really identified myself by what I did. And that's a really important point to make, Danny, because all of us, men and women, I think we all wear these masks of our identity. So who are you? I'm an architect. Yeah, but who are you? I'm a mum. I'm a dad. I'm a son. I'm a brother. I'm a football player. I'm this. And we've got all these masks, all these hats that we wear. So for me, sales was the way to say my self-worth identified with what did I have? Well, I went and had a beautiful big home. I put my kids through grammar school. I had a beach house down the coast. I drove a convertible BMW. My wife had a beautiful Mercedes SUV. And this was all about stuff. Yeah. But there was something going on in my 30s, even though I would be successful, but then I'd drop off a bit with my intensity, Danny, because I'd go, is this all there is? Is this what my life is? It's just accumulation of another thing. And I kind of liken it, Danny, I reckon, to a bit like a dopamine hit. Like you go and have a drug, or you have some chocolate or something that makes you feel good, and then you kind of come down off it. And I remember it's maybe even a little bit like when I ran my first marathon. I ran a couple of full marathons, the 42.195 kilometers or the 26 miles. And there was the high around that, but then after completing it and all the training, I kind of feel a bit flat. And so I liken sales a bit that way, that there really wasn't in my heart and my gut something that stayed with me, that made me feel good about me. So I actually think that I was just BSing myself, and I didn't really like who I was. So we all have to reconcile, Danny, with that friend or that person, maybe that imposter in the mirror, who stares back at us. And for many, many, many years, Danny, looking at myself, having a shave in the mirror, I actually didn't like looking at myself. I was uncomfortable. You know, a lot of people don't like to be in photos, for example. And I think a lot of that revolves around their lack of comfort in their heart about who they are and the language that they play in their mind and how they identify.
Mhm.
So fast forward into my 40s, I'm going through a long marriage, but not a very close marriage. On the external, we had a lot of nice things, beautiful cars, beautiful big home, kids in grammar school, overseas holidays, plenty of friends, so to speak. But there's still something missing. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I'm not at peace with myself. If I fast forward, Danny, to the age of 47, when I hit 40, in fact, I started to go for some reason to the doctor every year to get my bloods done. I just thought that might be a good thing to do. Not that anybody had ever said, hey, Phil, you should start doing that. And then at the age of 47, I was under a lot of financial pressure. We'd had the GFC, the global financial crisis, Danny, of 2008, 2009. I had a very successful mortgage practice. I was a mortgage broker, writing home loans for clients for 19 years. But I really wasn't enjoying that. But it was long hours, but the money was good. So it all looked great. But again, Phil's not very happy in himself.
Mhm.
And so I'm struggling. I'm under financial pressure because the GFC comes along. I've got huge debt, huge fixed overhead. And I'm in this world where my revenue, because of the GFC, I had my own finance product. And basically what it meant was my finance product became redundant because the cost of funds outweighed what I could sell my product at, and I couldn't compete in the marketplace anymore. And so next minute, I've got these huge fixed costs, but I can't find money to make this happen. I ended up getting my real estate license. And today, actually, I run a property company which will talk about my journey around saving brothers, which actually funds all the work that we've been doing. But I guess the thing, it manifests when we don't deal with things properly. The big fella upstairs, what I call him God or whatever you believe in, has got a habit of tapping you on the shoulder and interrupting your life when you least are ready for it. And for me, that manifested in a diagnosis of prostate cancer at 47. And many people would say, really? Geez, you're young to get prostate cancer at 47. But interestingly, when I have spoken with my urologist, Danny, he said, many times he operates on men even in their 30s now, getting cancer, prostate cancer. So for me, that was a real awakening. And I think I've always believed that a big part of that journey, Danny, was stress. That I was not sleeping well. I was manifesting a lot of stress, a lot of cortisol. And as a result, I ended up having my prostate removed in the December of 2014. And I went on a journey. I was in a very unhappy marriage, not a physical marriage, as in, we weren't close, we weren't really intimate. But on the outside, again, remember, hey, it all looked great, didn't it? But I just was
All that
lonely.
outside looking stuff can really be a detriment because it appears some way, and people are like, aren't you happy? And this is great. And it's a very negative thing. It accentuates the feeling of hollowness on the inside when others think that things are so wonderful. And even our own self, we're like, well, everything looks so wonderful. If everything looks so wonderful, why do I feel so awful?
Totally, Danny. And that's where we talk about the imposter syndrome. And I use the term, we all wear these masks or these, who do I want the world to think that I am? So we play these roles where it's like we're an actor in our own movie. And I was just BSing myself for years. And it got to the point, it was like, I'm just not happy. I eventually left my marriage. I did go through a journey with prostate cancer. I ended up having 5 surgeries. I had a lot of plumbing complications over a period of years. And, it was just, I always say, and it's interesting for me, I'd love to know what your listeners say, but particularly those that have had a really challenging experience, like a cancer diagnosis. I saw it very much as an out-of-body experience, Danny. And it was like I was watching a movie. I was like, there's a camera up there, I'm watching myself. Mm-hmm. How am I behaving? How am I dealing with this? And whether it's that fight or flight stuff that kicks in, I just went into a zone that maybe a bit like when women, I'm amazed when women have a baby. I think it's almost they're in a trance-like state to be able to do what they do, to be able to, push that child out through such a narrow passage is insane when you think about what the
Yeah.
body can do. And I liken it to that it's a little bit like I was watching myself dealing with the knowledge that I've had a tumor, I've got a cancer diagnosis, it could be dangerous, but I never felt like I was going to not get through it. And I think all of these things were over time lessons. And then eventually 2014, June to 2018 rather, I ended up leaving my marriage after 22 and a half years. The guilt I felt, Danny, and I still some years later find there are times because I don't live with my sons. I've got two boys, 22 now and 20, wonderful young men. I stayed in a marriage, and I know a lot of people do this. They'll say, oh, but we stayed together for the kids. But ultimately, I think you're robbing yourself when you do that. But the guilt was so huge. And eventually I moved out, ended up moving out of a 57 square home, which was like a big, beautiful, big French provincial home, to a 1-bedroom flat, almost like a little bedsit. And because I felt so guilty to spend any money. And I went through a really traumatic time of, yes, you said at the start, loneliness. It was like I was excommunicated from our social network. I mean, for 25 years, I went to family dinners with my wife's family every Tuesday night. That was finished. And all the family, I was gone. And a lot of just the family friends as well. It was like, the people, it's interesting, people do take sides in these relationships. And a lot of the women, a lot of the relationships I had were through school, and the friendships, they kind of just waned. And I just felt that there weren't people in my corner, perhaps in the way that I would have liked. So I did very much go into my cave. I became very insular. I definitely felt very lost and very alone, very, very alone. And when I say alone, I'm talking about, Danny, alone in pain in my thoughts. Thoughts that, do I drive my car into a tree? I wonder who, when I would lie in bed at night, who would come to my funeral? Well, why would they want to come to your funeral? Mate, you're just a dickhead. What? You're a loser. All the self-talk, the destructive self-talk that. And I ended up,
all the guilt, all the blame, all the shame.
all
Shame
of the
is
blame
so
and the shame.
destructive. And you
All of
had
it.
friends that had committed suicide during that time too, didn't you?
I definitely did. And I went to school with 4 of my buddies had taken their lives since we finished school. And there were other people along the journey and it would really rock me. And I would feel this, I've got to do something, but I'm battling through my own pain. Like I'm kind of like trying to, get to the surface, and I'm drowning. And I ended up on YouTube of all places, and I ended up watching a video about a man, and ultimately it was about affiliate marketing. But what was there was that this man was a lawyer out of Singapore, and he looked so relaxed. And I was just not that person at that time, Danny. And I thought, I've got to explore this. The feeling of being called to something.
Mm-hmm.
Something was pulling me there. Had no concept of what this was. Next minute, I've joined this group called the SFM, the Six Figure Mentors. And before I knew it, this is in 2018 in August. I'm in the Gold Coast, which is the beautiful beaches in Australia and Queensland. And I'm doing a course, Danny, called the Brand Incubator. And the Brand Incubator was about self-exploration around your values and what you stand for. And there were people from the US, Portugal, Ireland, New Zealand, Australia, all over the world, UK, came to this conference for 3 days. Now, I went there thinking I'm going to be a digital rock star and sit on a beach with my laptop and make money while I sleep. That was my theory. But what it was this real internal journey. And my eldest son was doing his high school exams that week. My ex-wife was into my ear about, this is disgraceful. You're off doing your thing. You should be here supporting him. And I remember standing in the toilets, just crying and crying in the men's room. And a beautiful man, John Jackson from Texas, he's one of the facilitators, he's about 6'7", a beautiful man, JJ. And he came up and put his arms around me. He just says, brother, I got you. I got you, brother. And it was just kind of like an intersection of my life at that point. And something happened, Danny. And I
Yeah,
started to
those
think,
words, I felt those words when you said them. I got you, brother. That
oh,
those words convey value. Like my book, Because You Matter. People need to know they matter. They need to know they have value. And for this man to say, I got you, is a different way of him saying, you have value. And
you know
whatever
what?
you were wrestling
Mm.
with, whatever was the source of it, whatever, all of that is stuff to be sorted out, you know, but the basis has to be that you have value and let's figure this out. Let's do this together. Maybe you got right and wrong mixed together. I mean, we all do, don't we? And so it's like figuring it all out. The shame is useless. It's only when I talk about blame in my book, I talk about blame is good for like a minute. We need it for a minute because we need to identify something and then we need to let go of it. It's like we need to see, oh, that's where it started. Okay, now on to the next thing. You can't focus on that though, because you have to go past that, because otherwise you get stuck and you have to get into the healing. So I'm just very thankful for this man who came up behind you and said, I got you, brother. I felt that when you said that.
Oh, and it was, and I was just, I mean, we're talking a big man with like a bear hug, and I am sobbing. I am sobbing, and like there are hundreds of people in the foyer because there was as part of this whole conference, even though there was 23 of us working in this group together. And it's interesting how you talk about because you matter. So the tagline for which we'll talk about today, Saving Brothers, is actually you matter. So there you go.
I noticed that.
Well, there you go. Cool. And I remember going back into this 3-day journey, and I started to think about what would my boys think of me when I leave this earth? How will people speak about me? What is my legacy? What is my worth? Why am I here? And I started to think, you know what? I've got mates that have taken their lives, 4 of them. I've had cancer. I don't think men really look after themselves, including me. I need to do something. I need to make a difference. I also want my boys to be proud of me. I want my boys to look back. This is how I was thinking at the time, Danny. I want my sons to say, Dad was a good man and he helped a lot of people. This just started to evolve. And then I ended up at another conference in Cape Town in South Africa, a mastermind event. And I'm sitting at the bar of the one and only hotel with the beautiful Table Mountain in the background. And I'm sitting with this gorgeous lady from Canada. Her name is Irene Webster, and she was one of the facilitators. And Irene would be a beautiful lady in her 60s. And she knew I wanted to do something to do with men. But at that stage, Danny, I really wasn't clear. And she said, Phil, just follow your heart, my friend. Don't worry about the money. If you just follow your heart, everything else will unfold. And that's all I've ever done, Danny. And Saving Brothers eventually was born. And I was ridiculed by certain people. What right have you got to think that you can help men? I mean, who are you, Philip? You might do more damage than being helpful. And I had to deal with, these were people in my social network that I ended up having to actually cut out of my life, because I'm thinking, you're actually now doing me more damage. I'm working hard now. I'm fighting to rebuild who I am, my psyche, and actually get to know myself and like myself. And so from there, Saving Brothers, Danny, basically became born. And it was really firstly about helping other men out there to deal with the pain and loneliness. And in fact, a lady who I'm funny enough catching up with online from Wales tonight, her name's Jill Humphreys, Tony Robbins certified coach, one of my coaches. She coached me when I was really at a very low point, and she knew I wanted to build this entity. And she said, Phil, all the pain you've been through, my friend, is not your punishment. It's the preparation for the man you need to be to lead this organization, this movement of helping men around the world. And hence that's the journey that we are very much on now, Danny.
Yeah, I love a quote that I use in one of my books is you have to burn your pain as fuel on your journey. You turn it
Totally.
as fuel. You turn it into fuel into what you're doing.
Totally.
Another way is turning your pain into purpose. There's
Yeah.
pain in the world. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the movie Princess Bride, but but there's one line, it's a great movie, it's funny. But one line is, he goes, life is pain. Anyone who is telling you different is telling you a lie or something like that. But life is pain. I don't think life is pain because it's said as a funny thing, but there is pain in life. You said, you talked about, the man upstairs or God or whatever. I'm a believer in Jesus. And he said we would have pain. He didn't say, I'm going to give it to you. He said, it's just a fact of life. And it's like, what are we going to do with that? And so you're burning your pain as fuel, is what I see that you're doing. One of the things you started with, tell the people a little bit about your Keep Five Alive, your Keep
Sure.
Five Alive thing.
Yeah. And I'll jump into that one thing I will say. I've said my pain was my gift. My cancer was my gift. None of this would have ever happened without any of these things happening along the journey. So Keep Five Alive, though, which is this hand signal. Basically what I did, and a lot of my ideas, Danny, come to me in nature when I'm out walking. So I got my dog Milo sitting behind me. He's kind of just, a little bit snoring there in the background.
What kind of
Not
dog
too
do you
loud,
have?
hopefully, because we are live.
What
But
kind of dog is he?
he's a Beagle, Milo. He's half a Beagle, half a Cavalier. So he's a beautiful brown, beautiful boy. But again, he's been like a best friend. He's like a soldier for me. He's just been there all through the journey with me. But the whole Keep Five Alive, Danny, came about when I was out in nature on one of my morning walks. And I thought, what can we do to get men? What are the things men need to do?
Mhm.
Number one, self-love, self-care. Become your own best friend. Now, that's not to say, oh, look at you, you're absolute stud muffin. No, just like yourself. Learn to like yourself. You have to live with yourself 24 hours a day for
Yep.
however long you are on this earth. So you might as well start to think better thoughts and kinder thoughts, because too often we still beat ourselves up. You loser, you dickhead, you dill. Good, of course you didn't make that happen. It only ever happens to you. It's just negative self-talk. And I love what Brian Tracy once said. If you don't like, you're the director of your own movie. If you don't like what's going on, change the script, rewrite the script.
Amen.
And I love that one. So self-love, self-care. And the way we do that, firstly, is check in with ourselves every day. How do I feel about me today on a scale of 1 to 10? 1 being really average, 10 being outstanding. Really important. And then number 2 is actually movement, exercise, really important. We know that 30 minutes 5 times a week, walking, for example, has been proven to replace 1 antidepressant tablet. And let's face it, too many people are stuck on that stuff. So a bit of exercise for men and women is important. Really key one, number 3, though, Danny, and this is where men, I think, haven't been very good. And that is get to a doctor every year and get your bloods done. And that's, for me, it was really life-saving. I mean, if I didn't have a PSA score or baseline as a result of going to my doctor, it was the percentage change, Danny, from 1 year to the next, for him to say, maybe something's going on.
Wow.
Let's go and see a urologist. I'll give you a referral letter. So the thing is, men, unfortunately, we're very reactive with our health. So we tend to go to a doctor, I've often said, when our leg's about to fall off. And what I mean by that is, like, you know what, we're not good. And even the medical system, really, it's not about prevention. It tends to be about, this happened, that's causal, therefore I'll give you this tablet or this. So think of it like your car. If you do not put oil in the oil sump, if you do not service that car, eventually something may well fail. And therefore you need to lift up the bonnet, take it to the auto shop and look after the engine. Our body is our engine. And so that's so important to get the car serviced, as we should get ourselves serviced. So prevention, and particularly I think in the US, if I'm not mistaken, because I've got a lot of friends in the US, healthcare is not cheap. So you don't want to end up in a hospital, particularly if you haven't got healthcare, and try to have to think, well, that's going to cost you 50,000 US because you didn't take care. And one of the biggest problems right now around the world, Danny, is type 2 diabetes. It's at it's pandemic levels. So really important to be preventative and get your bloods done every year. Number 4, and I'm sure this is something I would know you practice, is gratitude. Be grateful for what you do have. I think too much energy is spent on, I'll be happy when this happens, when I get the perfect relationship, get the best job, when I can get on the holiday. And we're not present in the now. A boss of mine once said, Phil, wherever you are, be there, be present. Enjoy this moment. We don't know if we're going to be here tomorrow. I'm not trying to be morbid, but you know what? There's no guarantee. And eventually, as the great Jim Rohn said, there's no such thing as security. You're not going to get out alive.
That's one thing I want to pause at what you're saying here, because it connected with something that you said a little bit ago, and I hadn't ever seen that before. I thought it was really cool. You said, you know, you need to be your own best friend. And there's a quote that I'm familiar with, that wherever you go, there you are.
Love it.
So it's like,
and that's true.
When someone doesn't love themselves, wherever they go, there they are. They're trying to avoid that because they don't like that. But then what you're talking about here, you need to be present wherever you are, there you are, but you need to do that with intention. And you will only do that when you develop that self-love and self-acceptance. I just never saw that where you are on both sides of that coin before.
Absolutely. And it's so important. And then the fifth one, which is for men, is crucial, particularly because of our social conditioning. I think it goes back to the days of the hunter. And that is, we wear these masks that, mate, I'm fine. As a buddy of mine once said from the States, he said, he's from Memphis. He said, you know what, if things aren't any good, we'll just rub a bit of dirt on that, you know, and get on with it. And it's like, but that's what men do. It's like, oh, harden up, you pussy, you know, get on with it, man. Toughen up. That's not helpful. So
no, it's not. I mean, resilience is important, but that's not suck it up and get over it. That's, you have to build that on the inside, because men and even women that don't deal with their emotions, trauma is one of the causes of type 2 diabetes. Not the exclusive one, but it is a cause of that. And that is when people don't deal with it.
Oh, totally. So what we teach men, like if I go and engage with a fella, or most men, if they catch up with each other, they'd say, hi, how you doing? I'm fine, I'm good, I'm not bad, if you're in Australia. But what did we really learn about where that person's psychology is at right now? I'd say nothing, because that's just an automated response. I think a more empowering question, which is number 5 on the Keep 5 Alive, is we asked this one, Danny. Hey, brother, how's your day going out of 10? Now,
yeah, that demands an answer instead of how are you? And people, that's such a greeting that people are like, you don't really want to know the answer. Don't even ask.
Yeah. And so I still sometimes get people go, yeah, no, man, I'm good. And I go, whoa, hang on, buddy. No, but if 10 is outstanding, but 1 is pretty ordinary, give us a score, brother. I try to make it a bit humorous, particularly if they don't give me a score straight off. Number 1, it gets them to check in with themselves and actually stop and think, well, how am I doing? To me, the score itself, Dan, is not that important.
Right.
Now, I can tell you I've had men that'll say, man, I'm at an 11. Good on you, brother. I'll have men that'll say I'm at a 7. I'll have men that'll say, mate, probably about a 3, 2. So the response is, well, brother, what's going on for you? What made you give that score? So what I want to do, Danny, what we're teaching men is to give them a safe space to step into their vulnerability.
Safe.
Now,
safe.
I'm not saying...
Safe is so important. Safe.
Yes, safe is the word. And I'm not saying I'm expecting him to break down in tears, or which sometimes has happened, and certainly for me it has. I mean, we've got tear ducts, why not use them? It's very cathartic and cleansing. The important thing, I think, with men, why sometimes they're afraid to ask the question, is because we think in Rubik's Cubes. We think we've got to solve everything. If a woman comes home, a lady, and says to her, he asks, how was your day, honey? Well, and she starts, his brain goes into overdrive. She's sharing about what happened at the water fountain, or with her boss, or with her colleague, and his brain's thinking, I've got to come up with all the answers. No, he doesn't. He just needs to kind of shut up and listen.
Yeah.
She just wants him to listen. And it's the same with this question when we ask, hey, brother, how's your day going out of 10? We don't have to have a solution.
Right.
We just need to say, just be that safe person for him to share. Because
Yeah.
traditionally we go into our cave, we go into the recesses of our mind because we think, man, this is too much. I can't deal with this. It is so unburdening to be able to share what's going on. And I know of men particularly through some charity work one of my other brothers does. They taught me that question. So I don't own it, but we use that. Hey, brother, how's your day going out of 10? He said in their charity, and they're about suicide prevention in particular, Danny. And he said, you know what? They've had men that were about to take their life. And then they've asked later on down the track when things are a lot better, brother, why didn't you take your life that day? And he said, because you asked.
Yeah,
You
because it's
actually
about
asked
not
how I
being
was.
alone. Like
Yeah,
you
and
went through your
exactly.
thing and you felt alone, and you're giving them a place to not be alone. They're not going back in that cave, how you're putting it.
Yeah,
You know, that's the whole thing with my faith. I mean, people promote that like this morbid thing out there, but Jesus came to do life with us, for us to not be alone. He came and lived inside of a body so that we would not be alone, and gave us the Holy Spirit so we would not be alone. A man needs to feel like it's okay to not be okay, and he's not alone in that feeling. It's so important that not feeling alone, because alone is an awful feeling, because we weren't created to be alone. I mean, we have three parts of us. We're relational creatures. We need that interaction. It's something that I believe is by design in our humanity.
absolutely. You're spot on, Danny. And I think that's why COVID was so difficult, because we
Oh,
couldn't be with
yes.
even to shake hands with someone, to give someone a hug, to eyeball them rather than on a Zoom call or a Microsoft Teams or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's part of the human connection. The part of being human is to actually engage and to be with other people.
And that's part of the thing with masks with some people, because you couldn't read their expressions.
Yeah,
It inhibited
totally.
their expressions. I mean, psychologists are talking about side effects with babies that have had less mirroring things because of the mask. I'm not saying they shouldn't have done that, and I'm not going to get all into the science of that. That's not it. I'm
Sure.
talking about how it has a side effect. It has a side effect to it. And for people who have difficulty hearing, that was very difficult. It's hard to understand someone speaking through that. And, you know, you're dealing with people with an emotional mask, and they're not conveying things too. So it's like, that's really powerful. We need that safe space. We need to be able to join hands in our hearts, and it be okay to not be okay.
Absolutely, Danny. And I think for what we've decided with Saving Brothers, which is our platform, savingbrothers.com, is we wanted to land in a certain area, and we picked sleep as a really important starting point. And I kind of see it as the top of the pyramid. And so we've actually now got another website, sleepingtest.com, which is purely all about diagnostics around sleep, because a lot of people just don't understand the value and really the intrinsic importance of sleep.
People
For
don't
example,
understand the complexity and the needs of the human body
well, that's
and the
exactly the point.
miraculousness of a human body. I mean, think about what all is happening inside of a human body. I was talking with someone else who I'd interviewed on here. You may be familiar with him, Dr. Stephen Neff. He's a thesist, anesthetist. I can't say the word.
He's from New Zealand.
Yes, he is. And just talking about the
He was
miraculousness,
an alcoholic.
yeah, of the human body. And people don't, when they feel like they don't matter. I mean, one of the things why my faith is so important is because of the depth of how much you matter. You matter so much in so many different ways. And like, just think of a baby when they discover their hands, and they just sit and stare at them because they're so amazed by them. They're like, wow, it's moving. And if we could get that same sense of wonder in ourself, wow. And not to get all full of ourselves, like you said, not to turn into a narcissist or, you know, the world revolves around me kind of thing, but to be amazed at humanity, to be amazed at one another, to be amazed at our own self. That's just so important. The wonder. We need to recapture wonder. It's a wonder. Life is a wonder.
Totally. And I think what we do as we get on the adult journey, we lose that childlike wonderment. I mean, as a child, I used to watch every Sunday night in Australia, The Wonderful World of Disney. And it was just the most magnificent thing. And I would love watching it. And I used to, as a young boy, watch the Herbie movies, you know, with the VW and Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo. But we lose that sense of wonderment about life. And life is this amazing gift that eventually will close this chapter and we'll go into another being potentially. And it's like God created us in all uniquely. There is never going to be another Danielle Burnock. Never, ever.
Right. And there's never going to be another Philip Robison.
Totally. And that's the wonderment
That's
of
amazing.
the beautiful journey that we've been gifted. And I think sometimes we forget about that. And it leads me into some of the things that we're doing at Saving Brothers, like we talked about sleep. I mean, the reason we're so passionate about sleep is people don't realize that OSA, or what they call obstructive sleep apnea, if you don't treat it, people are 5 times more likely to drop dead of a heart attack. People don't realize that 83% of people with OSA or sleep apnea have type 2 diabetes. So these things can be corrected, and sleep is so powerful because at night the cerebral fluid is washed out. All the toxins in your brain are washed out, and that needs to happen in deep sleep. And for men, I mean, you know, men always talk about, you know, I'm a man, I can get an erection. But, you know, 69% of men have, with OSA, untreated, have erectile dysfunction. And, you know, so they're thinking they're going to pop the Viagra, for example. It's like, well, there are other ways that you can take better care of your body. So sleep is so powerful. So we're actually really, really honing in on that as part of the important journey at Saving Brothers. The other thing that I've invested a lot of money into, Danny, and I mentioned off air to you, a lot of our team are based in the USA. We're really a global entity. I mean, we've got a bunch of our guys are in Florida, Jacksonville, for example, Buddy, Danny Ham. We've got people in the different parts, Colorado, Miami, and we're building an app for men, and I'm going to make it free. So you won't have to buy the app. It'll be on iOS and Android, and we're hoping to launch in the second week of October. And that app will be about self-care, and there'll be a lot of fun facts around what we're doing, Danny. We've got hundreds of these little fun facts about, hey, did you know about this? And all related to men's health so that they can get on the journey and be proactive. But importantly, we want to partner with doctors around the world because we designed it with all these trackers in there. So if your doctor says to you, Philip, I need you to watch your glucose, or how much sleep are you getting? I need you to watch your cholesterol. You'll be able to track all of that in our app for free. And as well, we're going to
proactive things instead of just popping some kind of medicine, because there's a place for medicine, but there's so many other things we can do besides that. So I just want to pause here for my listeners here. I want you to hear me and hear Philip. You are amazing. You're amazing. Just stop while you're listening to this and say to yourself, and use your own name and say, I am amazing. Like say, Danielle is amazing. Say, James is amazing, or Paul is amazing, or Janet is amazing, or whatever your name is. Say, you are amazing. You need to understand that there is only one of you. You are a gift to the world. And what Phil is doing here, he's doing for men, and he's going to be making this app available to you. So please track it down and be there for the launch for it. We're going to start running out of time a little bit here. So I want to reveal a little bit. He's got something else up his sleeve he's got coming for you ladies. But before we get there, Phil, share with the people, how can they connect with you and know about this launch of your app? And then just briefly, that little bit, whatever you want to share, because we're running out of time here.
Sure. So savingbrothers.com is our global platform. And we have another platform, sleepingtest.com, and that's around sleeping, working out diagnostic whether you actually got sleep apnea. And we've got an incredible product called the WatchPat 1. And that WatchPat 1 is actually around gut health and actually diagnosing whether you've got sleep apnea. So we've got a whole bunch of these tools, but sleepingtest.com is one of our sites, but savingbrothers.com That is our main platform, and there's lots of courses in there. There's a lot of learning, a lot of free content in there, a lot of articles. So yeah, and there'll be a bunch of quizzes that will be available within the next week, and we've got a shop there. We'll have probably next week, we'll have over 90 sleep products, for example, to help people deal with their sleep and gut health. But you're right, there is something coming for the ladies, because a lot of the people on our team globally are women. And I mentioned off air to you, I said I've got 23,000 LinkedIn connections. And one of the women who heads up our sleep team, Catherine Nixon, I call her the sleep whisperer, Danny. She said, but Phil, what about all the ladies out there? And I said, well, yeah, well, but we're saving brothers. And we didn't want to confuse the men about, hang on, but aren't you saving brothers? And now you're talking about women? And she said, you know, there's a lot of women, and she's actually a registered nurse. She said, there's so many women in their late 30s, but their 40s and their 50s in particular are dealing with stuff. Their bodies are changing, perimenopause, post-baby, hormonally. And they have a lot of gut health issues. They got a lot of sleep issues, a lot of emotions, a lot of stuff's going on. And we decided to create, by invitation only, another platform for women, run by women in our team. And it's going to be called sleepingbeauty.vip. sleepingbeauty.vip. So my buddies in the States are working with me. In fact, I got a WhatsApp message with an update this morning. So that's going to probably get launched within the next 8 weeks. And then after that, the next part of our journey is we want to help the boys out there, particularly the teenagers. I think a lot of kids get lost on the journey, Danny. And so what we've got is Saving Little Brothers, and that'll be mentoring and giving boys really good skill sets on how they can become their own best friend, good set of values. I think the big problem with a lot of people, they don't know what they stand for. They don't know what their values are, what's their purpose. And so that's really around tailoring a program for boys 15 to 23 to get on that journey and really hope that become good young men with some purpose in their lives. So they're probably the key things that are coming up over the next few months. So we got a lot happening out there, Danny, and we're excited about that, of course.
So much. We could talk for a whole nother hour. I'm going to have you back on after you launch this other thing and talk about the next thing again next time, because there's just so much gold here. But I like to keep things to a listening level so people don't get tired and turn things off, but we will have to have you back again. So thank you for being with me today, Phil. And you who are listening, look up Phil, look him up, go to savingbrothers.com. Follow him on his socials and all the different places, and avail yourself to the things that are available to you, because you matter. And so till next time, I love you. Bye-bye.